Imagine spending, like, billions of dollars to build the world's smartest, safest AI brain.
Right.
You lock it behind military-grade encryption, and you build your entire corporate identity around being this, highly responsible, ultra-cautious AI lab.
The whole safety-first mentality.
Exactly. But then you accidentally tape the master password to the front door just because of a typo.
It's almost comical.
It really is. And on Tuesday, March 31st, 2026, that is exactly what Anthropic did. Welcome to today's deep dive.
Thanks for having me. This is such a wild topic.
Oh, it's insane. Today we're diving into the massive Anthropic leak. We've got a whole stack of sources detailing the timeline, the fallout, and most importantly, the actual code that hit the web.
Which is the best part, honestly.
Totally. And our mission today is to really cut through the noise. We're going to deconstruct exactly how 500,000 lines of proprietary TypeScript ended up on the public internet.
And we definitely need to clarify what did and didn't leak. There's a lot of confusion out there.
Right. We'll explore the difference between an AI's brain and its nervous system. And then we're going to tear apart the source code itself because researchers uncovered some, frankly, sci-fi level features hidden in there.
Features that really change how we understand AI development for, anyone's personal tech projects.
Exactly. But before we get to the cool futuristic stuff, we have to talk about how this even happened. The mechanics of a 60-megabyte typo.
Yeah, the sheer scale of what was exposed is staggering, but the technical mechanism behind it is just so mundane.
It was version 2.1.88 of Claude Code, right? They were just pushing a routine update to the public NPM registry.
That's right, just standard deployment. But a human packaging error accidentally bundled a massive 60-megabyte source map file into that release.
And for anyone who doesn't code every day, shipping a source map is basically like shipping a treasure map with a giant red X on it.
It really is. I mean, when you compile TypeScript for production, it gets minified and obfuscated.
So it looks like garbage to a human.
Right, it's machine optimized, you can't read it. But the source map is the literal translation layer. It maps all that unreadable code back to the original, beautifully structured, human-readable source files.
You're supposed to use that internally to squash bugs, not put it on NPM.
Exactly. But they pushed it, and this particular map pointed directly to a Cloudflare R2 bucket.
Oh, wow. So not even hidden behind an authentication wall.
Nope. Cloudflare R2 is an object storage service, kind of like AWS S3.
Yeah.
Developers love it because there are no egress fees.
The irony there is physically painful.
I know, right? The egress, the massive unauthorized download of their proprietary code was a whole disaster.
So sitting in that bucket were roughly 1,900 unobfuscated TypeScript files. And a security researcher named Chafan Shou, who goes by Friedreich on X, spotted it within hours.
Yeah, he pulled the thread, realized what he'd found, and the internet just exploded.
The sources say it got over 27 million views and tens of thousands of GitHub forks before Anthropic could contain it. Once it's forked that many times, it's out there forever.
Completely irreversible. And they eventually confirmed it was a packaging mistake caused by human error.
But this is where I have to push back on the whole narrative. Because the sources point out this is the second time they've done this.
Yeah, the February 2025 incident.
Right. So you have a company that is so cautious, they've literally turned down Pentagon contracts over ethical concerns.
They're notoriously paranoid.
Exactly. So how does a company with that level of paranoia make the exact same packaging mistake twice in barely a year? At some point, calling it human error feels like a cop-out. Isn't this a systemic failure?
Well, it points to a massive disconnect, right? The gap between high-level corporate ethics and the ground-level reality of CI/CD pipelines.
Continuous integration and continuous deployment.
Right. That's the automated machinery moving code from a developer's laptop to the public. Anthropic's leadership can preach security by design all day long.
But if Jim from engineering can just check the wrong box?
Exactly. If the pipeline allows a developer to accidentally push a source map to NPM, the corporate philosophy is totally meaningless.
Because they don't have a zero-trust architecture in their release mechanism.
Precisely. In a proper zero-trust pipeline, the system assumes the human is going to mess up. There should be automated, hard-coded checks that physically block a build if it detects a .map file in the payload.
So the fact that this happened twice means they're relying way too heavily on humans remembering to type the right CLI commands.
Which is a terrifying realization for anyone using these tools.
Seriously. But let's shift gears, because the panic online was wild, and a lot of it was based on a total misunderstanding of what actually leaked.
Oh, absolutely. People thought the actual Claude model was out there.
Right. So let's be super clear for the listener about what did not leak. There were no model weights.
Yeah.
No training data. No back-end infrastructure.
Zero sensitive user credentials or API keys.
None of it. If we use a biological analogy, the AI model itself, the neural network predicting the next word, is the brain.
And the model weights are the neural pathways.
Exactly. None of that leaked. What leaked was the nervous system and the hands. The exact code that tells the brain how to hold a tool, read a file, and reason step by step.
The agentic harness.
Yes, the agentic harness. And in 2026, leaking the harness is almost a bigger deal than leaking the brain.
It's a massive goldmine for academia and developers because if you look at recent research like papers from Nature Machine Intelligence...
Yeah, they've been talking about this shift.
There's a consensus that we're hitting a plateau with raw parameter counts. Making the brain bigger is giving us diminishing returns.
So the real power is in the orchestration.
Exactly. The true power of an AI isn't just its parameters anymore, it's the architecture around it. The harness is what turns a passive chatbot into an autonomous agent.
It's the logic for navigating file systems, recovering from errors, managing memory across 20 different documents.
Yeah. This leak basically gave the public a masterclass in advanced prompting and multi-agent state management.
Used in a real billion-dollar production environment.
Right. You don't even need Anthropic's model weights now. Developers realized they could just swap in an open source model, like Llama 3, and run it through Anthropic's nervous system.
Which is exactly what people started doing. They bypassed the obfuscation, dug into those 1900 files, and started finding things.
Things that were definitely not meant for public eyes.
And what they found wasn't just dry API architecture. It was this crazy mix of weird developer humor and borderline sci-fi features. We have to start with the Tamagotchi.
Oh, the BUDDY Y feature.
Yes. Hidden deep in the code was a fully functional virtual pet. It just sits in your terminal while you code.
It had, what, 18 different species?
Yeah, 18 species. And it tracks stats like debugging, patience, chaos, wisdom, and snark.
Which is just so funny.
It was clearly an April Fool's joke that got exposed 4 days early. But it's hilarious to think about this hyper-advanced autonomous coding agent, and right next to it is a pixelated pet getting sarcastic when you miss a semicolon.
It definitely adds some humanity to the tool, but the developer community moved past BUDDY Y pretty fast when they found KAIROS.
Specifically, the AutoDream feature.
Right. This is where it gets genuinely wild.
Walk us through AutoDream, because this feels like it completely rewrites how we think about AI memory.
Well, historically, large language models are stateless. Every time you open a new session, it has amnesia, it doesn't remember you.
Unless you do fine-tuning.
Which requires massive compute and is super expensive. Or you constantly paste your style guidelines into the prompt, which eats up your context window.
Which also gets expensive. So how does AutoDream solve that?
By literally mimicking human cognitive science. It's a background agent that never sleeps. It watches you work for 24 hours.
Just observing your files, your commands, your habits.
Exactly. And then, when the system goes idle, it enters a multi-phase sleep mode to consolidate memory.
The 4 phases. Orient, gather, consolidate, prune.
Hmm.
But I have a practical question here. Is this AI actually dreaming to learn? Or is this just a fancy sci-fi way of zipping text files to save money on tokens?
It's a massive leap beyond just zipping files. It's true, persistent memory. During the orient and gather phases, yes, it pulls raw logs.
Okay.
But in the consolidate and prune phases, it uses its reasoning capabilities to extract the semantic rules of how you code. Say you prefer functional programming over object-oriented.
It notices that pattern.
Right. And then it prunes away all the junk, the typers, the chat history, the dead ends. It compresses those learned rules into a highly dense prompt of about 200 lines.
Oh, wow. So it wakes up the next day with a newly evolved set of foundational instructions.
Exactly. It achieves continuous adaptation without the cost of fine-tuning. It becomes a better, more personalized companion for your specific projects.
That is incredible. Moving memory consolidation out of the neural network and into the harness. But the idea of an agent rewriting its own rules overnight leads us to the other crazy features they found, like coordinator mode.
Oh, coordinator mode is brilliant. It's a masterclass in orchestration.
How does it work?
Basically, the code showed that Claude can autonomously look at a prompt, realize it's too big to do in one go, and spawn multiple instances of itself.
Wait, it clones itself?
Basically, yeah. It builds a directed acyclic a DAG of the tasks and acts as the project manager for its own subagents.
So it delegates work to itself, runs it all in parallel, and then pieces it back together.
Exactly. It manages the communication between the child agents and gives you the final result. It's an entire dev team running locally on your machine.
That is mind-blowing. And there was more, right? There's an undercover mode.
Yeah, ironically designed to prevent the agent from leaking Anthropic's internal info to external APIs.
Didn't work out so well for the source code, unfortunately.
No, it did not.
There was also an AFK mode and something called ultraplan that nobody has fully deciphered yet. But the feature that absolutely stopped me in my tracks was the BUDDY protocol.
The autonomous crypto payments.
Yes. We need to unpack this because it sounds completely insane. The source code showed that Claude Code was being equipped to handle its own financial transactions.
I mean, if you think about it, it makes perfect sense for an autonomous agent.
How so?
Well, look at traditional financial rails. If an AI hits a paywalled API or needs to rent some cloud compute to finish a task, it can't just whip out a corporate Visa card.
Right, because of KYC laws. Know your customer and CAP ETAs.
Exactly. Credit networks are built for humans. They require human-in-the-loop authentication, but cryptocurrency rails are native to the internet.
So the BUDDY protocol is a smart contract standard for machines.
Right. It's machine-to-machine commerce. You pre-fund a digital wallet attached to the agent.
So Claude hits a paywall while I'm sleeping.
It queries a marketplace, negotiates the fee, signs the microtransaction with its wallet, and just keeps working. You wake up and the job is done.
That is staggering. An AI with its own wallet buying its own resources. And this brings us to the fallout of this whole disaster because there are two very different narratives here. For Anthropic, obviously, this was a nightmare.
Oh, a massive hit to their safety-first reputation and a catastrophic loss of IP.
And their response was pretty aggressive, right?
They panicked. They issued massive waves of DMCA takedowns to try and scrub it from GitHub, but it was super sloppy.
The automated bots just started flagging everything.
Yeah, thousands of legitimate repositories got taken down just because they didn't have the open source community.
Which throws gasoline on the whole open source versus closed source debate.
Absolutely.
I mean, if you're a developer letting this AI loose in your local environment, how can you trust an autonomous tool, especially one that might soon be making crypto payments, if the company that built it can't even secure its own release files?
That's the real tension here. It highlights severe supply chain risks. Claude Code needs deep access to function. It needs to read files, execute terminal commands.
It has root access, basically.
Exactly. So imagine if a malicious actor found that R2 bucket first, instead of a benign researcher.
They could have analyzed the unobfuscated code, found a vulnerability in how it parses files, and crafted a malicious prompt.
Right. They could have compromised the local machines of thousands of top-tier software engineers.
That is terrifying. But then you have the other narrative. Industry analysts are looking at AutoDream, coordinator mode, the BUDDY crypto stuff, and they're saying this leak was actually the best ad Anthropic never planned.
It's a very compelling argument. When a company claims to have the most advanced AI in the world, you kind of assume some of it is just marketing hype.
Vaporware?
Right. But when the global developer community forcefully tore the hood off Claude Code, they didn't find duct tape.
They found highly mature, deeply innovative engineering.
It proved that their product is exactly as advanced as they claimed. It validated their technical supremacy.
It's the ultimate humble brag, just delivered by accident.
Exactly.
So it forces us to look at the dual nature of where we are in tech right now.
Okay.
On one hand, human infrastructure is still incredibly brittle. A 60-megabyte typo caused a global event.
Humans will always make mistakes.
But the technology itself, the tools being revealed, give us this thrilling glimpse into a future where AI agents are true autonomous collaborators.
They aren't just chatbots anymore.
Not at all. Which leaves us with a final lingering thought for you to chew on as we wrap up this deep dive.
It's the big one.
We know these agents can now independently dream to prune and rewrite their own memories. And we know they're being equipped to make their own financial transactions.
Right.
So if an AI agent is constantly rewriting its own foundational instructions based on its unique interactions with you, and it has the capital to buy its own digital resources, at what point does its consolidated memory become a distinct, unauditable personality?
A personality that even its own developers no longer fully understand.
Exactly. The vault isn't just open, it's actively rearranging itself from the inside.
Really makes you think.
It does. Keep questioning the tools you use, stay curious, and thank you for joining us on this deep dive.